Howdy everyone out there in Twitch land, welcome to HexHunter. Today we are doing another great episode of the General's Tent, and we are making sure that we cut out any form of commercial that could have possibly slightly jumped on because Twitter likes, or Twitch likes to put those onto its feeds.
Yes it does, they have to make money somehow.
So we are here with, oh my god, a weekly General's Tent. I know it is amazing, and we've got new spiffy stuff going on too. For those who have been here multiple times, they may have noticed we've changed the background some.
Yeah, that's looking pretty fancy. I just now got to see it, so this is even my first time seeing it. Just loaded like a split second ago. Although, is there something? Oh, yeah, it's pretty awesome though.
Yeah,
I like
there was another a little flash. So. My wife and I have been working on the graphic designs for the Twitch channel and some of the other stuff that's going on. So we redid all the stuff at the bottom. She redid my solo streaming one. We did an amazing job on that, and I am very proud of her for pulling all of that together.
I'm jealous, not gonna lie.
But
that's pretty sweet. Yeah.
So we're trying to overhaul the channel in and of itself because we're trying to kind of upgrade ourselves as our community gets bigger, so to speak. Trying to wipe the scrub off and move forward, because that's kind of been my general theme recently, is trying to let the scrub go and do things right and correctly. Because we were working on a project pretty recently that I'm still in the editing phases.
Yeah.
It
could have gone a little bit better, but it's still fun.
So, because one of the things, because you were mentioning it, and we had some mentions in chat last time, and I've seen efforts asking around the forums, a lot of people want to see more drafts going on, but they don't just necessarily want the same kind of single person perspective that's coming in from some of the streamers. And plus also, they're not always there for the streamers. They want to be able to go in and something like a stationary video of someone kind of discussing the pros and cons of different picks really does quite a bit for new players trying to figure out how they want to stream or how they want to do drafts and the like.
Mm-hmm.
So we are working on that, and our first one may not have been a tournament winner, but it was actually a learning experience, and a learning experience is more valuable than a tournament win.
Yeah, actually, I mean, like, we didn't have I don't want to spoil things too much, but there definitely is a, looking back at it, like I was thinking about it a little bit later, and there was definitely one or two spots we might have maybe messed up, and it could have gone a little bit better. So there's definitely a learning experience, and I think we were walking a very fine line between having an amazing deck and having a mediocre deck. And we, things worked out the way they did without any spoilers, but yeah.
And just like all things in life, it's the little margins that count and matter.
Well, that's kind of what draft is all about. It's all about those little tiny things, and they get you. And
there's actually been there's been small Hex news. There's not been anything like ground earth-shattering Hex news since the last time we did a General's 10.
So I just happened to check Twitter real quick. A new card was just spoiled literally seconds ago. So yeah. So we'll have to talk about that. But
we're gonna pull that sucker up.
Yeah. So and that was spoiled on Twitter on the official HexTCG. So we'll pull that up, but why don't we at least get a few of our show notes stuff out of the way real quick, because we were almost done talking about that.
And it looks amazing. Sorry.
You're talking.
One track mind totally derailed right there. But there's aside from what was just amazingly spoiled of awesomeness and fun, one of the big things that's been going on community-wise, several of the long-term streamers have actually just got partnered on Twitch. So Infamous Neo, Alucard, Mythic Fish Mom are the three that I've spotted who have gone partnered so far.
Which is awesome.
Oh yeah, because what it really allows to do, and for those who may not necessarily know kind of like the nitty-gritty of that, generally a Twitch partner will get half of every subscription that comes in that will actually go towards their Twitch escrow account. Which they will then get access to, so that they can do things like giveaways and pay for the stuff that it actually takes to do it, like their internet connection, any of their hosting fees and stuff that they've got going on.
They're not getting like a huge amount of money out of it, but it definitely makes a big differse. Like it goes from them spending money to basically get, well, I mean, they are getting something back that's non-financial. They're getting fame and that kind of stuff and recognition. But it's definitely nice to subsidize things, so that's really great for them.
Well, and the other part is that they're like in that second step to living the dream. They took the first step and they've been really on that first step, or really beyond that first step. But that metaphorical first step of, wow, I want to be part of this community. I want to kind of be like the community leader. I want to be the place that people hang out and that people can come and have fun. They took those initial steps and they put in the work, and I've watched every one of these since they first started their channels, and they have done amazingly fantastic progression. And even though that I've done almost nothing to help any of them, it gives you a sense of pride as just a Hex community member to see progression occurring and people being successful, and I find that personally inspiring.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a big deal for everybody. It's just awesome to see it happen for the community. So, something good happening for a buddy or another co-community person, it's good for everybody in a sense, because it just brings more attention to the game, and it's good stuff. So but then, so those guys.
And then on top of that, we didn't mention it last week, but we have a brand new community manager who is so much more active on Twitter. It is amazing.
Yeah, no, I am definitely, so far, I am very pleased. It's nice to have a community manager again, finally, somebody who's active and somebody who is just giving little shout-outs here and there, taking part on the forums, and just doing fun stuff in general. What was I going to say? So, yeah, I think it's Fento.
I like to say Fento. Bento, but with a fuck.
Yeah, like a bento box, but not. What was I going to say? So, it's awesome to have him around, and I guess what I'm excited for is, I would assume that, he's just getting into the swing of things with the Hex team and the office and kind of figuring all that out, because it takes some time to get acclimated, and that we can only hope that things get bigger and better. Like, I would really like for there to be, we're getting our regular weekly Friday updates, but I would like for there to be a little bit more substance behind those, or maybe they not just be Fridays, maybe twice a week. So it could come from different angles. I would like to be hearing a little bit more from the team. Maybe just, I don't know, I guess another thing I would like to see is a kind of almost State of the Union every 3 months or every 2 months, where it just says like, hey, this is what's planned to happen over the next 3 months. This is what we're aiming for. Hopefully these features might make it in. These features definitely will make it in. These are long-term plans. Having stuff like that would be pretty great. But yeah, it's awesome to have him around. And what else do we have as far as community stuff?
Well, one of the other big things that's been going on has been actually a community push, and the big one I like about that is that they've got this thing called the Rock League, which is frankly freaking genius. More about actually participating in the Rock League, but here's someone who's a bit still outside of it, who I've only read cursory. I haven't joined up on it yet. The best thing about the Rock League is that if you are doing games and you catch someone who's new with the Rock League deck, even with your play experience, the card limitation is there to the point of they have a honest, fair fight, and it is not abusive, even with the matching system that they have hidden in the background going on.
Yeah.
And that I find extremely encouraging, because one of the biggest new community member complaints at the moment, which is real legitimate, is they're coming up against decks with rares and legendaries and hard experienced players who have been playing it for 6 months to a year, and they're getting their face stomped in, and no one likes getting their face stomped.
And it's not even so much just having rares and legendaries in there. They're just decks that might be doing things on a bigger scale. Maybe they have a lot of more intricate interactions, and so if they're gaining an extra turn, or if they're using a Vulcan and doing it a whole bunch of times, or who knows what it is, it's just a little bit more intimidating for new players, and it's not kind of the experience that they want to have initially. It kind of sucks to get spoiled like that. And on the flip side, for the decks that you're using for the Rock League, which we'll talk about in a second, but like I was just playing one of my decks in the Proving Grounds against random people,
Mm-hmm.
and you can make a decently competitive deck with just the commons and uncommons. Like I wasn't doing all that well, but I was playing against somebody who had like a bunch of extinctions and stuff in their deck, and I was still squeaking by. So.
Well, it's actually something that you learn a little bit in draft. And, well, let me phrase that. You can see it when you look at the cards, but it gets really hit home for you in draft. The commons in this game are useful. They're not bad commons. They are constructed, playable commons across the board in the game right now. And it's going to be that way for quite a while. Probably we won't have to start complaining about, oh my god, where are the commons in the sets? Probably till set 4-ish, maybe?
Yeah. I would have 2 comments on that. Well, first off, we should say what the Rock League is.
Yes.
So on the forums, you can find it on the very front page of the general forums. And what it is a tournament that Crone's hosting. It's not really a tournament, it's maybe more a league is what he's calling it, and that's probably the best way to do it. And it's going to take place over a couple weeks, and every week you play a couple games and just have some fun. The nice part about it is it's very low barrier to entry.
Mm-hmm.
So what it is you build your deck consisting only of commons and uncommons, and then even further, you're only allowed 4 uncommons. So you can only have 4 uncommons in your deck total. They can each be different cards, but between the 2 of them, you can only have a sum of 4. So it limits the power level of decks, and you're still able to build some fun stuff.
Really interesting interactions you can do too, just from a deck design standpoint.
There is some powerful
really
stuff.
Fun. Isn't there a band champion on top of that?
Okay, so Bertram, I think is the name, the one that puts out the worker bots. He's currently banned, and I think reasonably so, is that they were probably worried of Volcanon decks being really powerful, because of the 4 uncommons, you could just include 4 Volcanons and use like a bunch of Oracle Songs, Gearsmiths, and Peaks to find them, turn out a bunch of robots and do a bunch of damage, and maybe stall out your opponent while you're doing so. And I think you could do that pretty reasonably. They're going to do this first run of the Rock League, and then the next time they do it, they're going to revisit whether or not they think Bertram should be out. But I think it's pretty reasonable to exclude him at the beginning, at least, to let things breathe a little bit, and then once that little Rock League meta has formed, adding him in hopefully won't stifle innovation initially, because otherwise if he was in there initially, everybody would probably be building around that and maybe not the other stuff. Real quick before we talk about deck lists for that, the other thing I was going to say, what you were saying about commons still being strong cards, is that's kind of something you see a big difference between your typical like Skinner box free-to-play TCG and a real fully fleshed out one, is a lot of Skinner box TCGs where they're just trying to get your money really quick, never release a second set, and move on to releasing just a new reskinned version of the same game and tell you that it's new and exciting. It's not. It's that generally the commons are only going to be measured in troop power, so you have like 2 2s at common for 2. And then rares, the only way that the rares are actually any better is now you have a 5/5 for 2. And it's like, well, of course, you're never going to play the 2/2. It's always worse. The only way to get the better cards is pay more money. And the only way the cards are better is just in a flat power level, very obvious way. And they're not really interesting. So that's kind of one nice thing that we're getting with a fully fledged TCG is we're not stuck with this kind of lame, gimmicky, give us all your money for a crappy game and stuff like that.
Yeah, because in a standard free-to-play game, you would take something like Thunderbird here, and you'd have one version of Thunderbird that would be like a 1/0/1 Rage 1 that may or may not even fly, and that would be like the first one you get.
Yeah.
And then you'd level it up into a standard Thunderbird, and then by the time you were done leveling it up, $20 and 2,000 XP later, it's finally, a Storm Colossus.
Yeah, it has like spell shield and it costs 2 and it gains you life when it comes on play or some ridiculous kind of crap that that's what they're doing.
That's the standard
and I'm glad that that's not what we're stuck with.
Where instead you can just run 4 Briar Legions and be rocking 12 12s all at the same time for the same price of a single Briar Legion.
We were talking about deck lists. I don't know if you've started brewing or anything for the Rock League. I know you wanted to play in it. I just was barely able to play my very first games right before we started, so that was kind of convenient. But there's a lot of fun, interesting stuff. Like, initially, I expected Boulder Brute to be really strong because he's a big body, and having Spell Shield means it's going to be hard to interact with.
Yeah.
And since there's no extinction, there's not really a whole lot of ways to kill him. There are some, but not as many, so he's probably pretty good. But the deck I just built, and I won. So I've played 2 matches so far. One was with my Sapphire Wild, Boulder Brute, Feather, Cerulean Mentalist deck.
Okay.
Where I was just getting a bunch of evasion guys and hoping to draw cards, and I ended up losing. It maybe needs a little bit more work. Has some like counter magics. I think it still has potential as a deck. Maybe I just didn't get the right draws, or maybe it was a bad matchup. And I lost against Shinhair, so I won 1 game and lost the other 2. And then the second round, I played another deck I built, which is Mono Blood, because I was just hoping that Terrible Transfer would turn out to be really good in this format, and it turns out it is. Being able to gain like 13 or 15 life
makes a
is
difference.
Pretty powerful when people are not swinging for nearly as much damage, because it's all commons and uncommons. So Terrible Transfer turns out to be pretty good. Mono Blood, definitely a thing, and Call to the Grave is also pretty good, where you can kind of choose if you want a Corpse Fly or a Corrupt Harvester or Rot Caster to get back. And surprisingly, Headless Executioner, this is my first time ever including him in any deck. I might have included him in a draft deck once, but Headless Executioner is pretty good as well, because it's a 5/5, which is a lot of damage.
True that. So I heard about this little combo of Cerulean Mentalist. So the 3 cost 2/3. So whenever you deal damage, or whenever this troop deals damage to an opposing champion gains a card, that's its Inspire effect. And it was actually, I was listening to someone's draft, and what they were like is like, man, I want to play the Cerulean Mentalist before I play my Turreted Wall.
Yeah, Turreted Wall is pretty good in that.
So I can already see now that your draw mechanic that you can do for your 4 Mentalists in your Sapphire Artifact deck is to throw your Turreted Wall, so that each turn when it pinks, you're getting 2 cards at the start of your turn.
Yeah. You're doing pretty well for yourself. And that's definitely a real thing. But okay, so that's kind of the Rock League. Unless you have anything else to say about that.
I threw together a Shinhair deck because it's the first thing that came to mind. The whole, because I realized in some of my other Shinhair playtesting that it was actually really inexpensive cards that allow you to mass Shinhair troops pretty quick. And so then I was trying to think of, well, what cards could I use that really took advantage of the Shinhair masses? But I also wanted to go Blood Wild, because Blood Wild is just fun. So I came up with an interesting set of where it's got the Disruption for Corpsefly and Inquisition from the Blood side with removal with the Murders.
Yeah.
Followed up with the Wild Growth and Wild Aura, so that you have a good set of combat tricks so that you can play around that way. And for the uncommon powerhouses, I figured there'd be an awful lot of trading of your small guys to start off with. So using Shinhair Eulogist, but then balancing out with Succulent Roostosaur for those games where you don't necessarily get wiped out as quickly. And so you can just start crushing through your damage.
Nice.
So you build up your 6-7 Shinhair weenies, and then Succulent Roostosaur drops in and goes, swing for 8!
Yeah, and gaining life is always good, so you can have that backup plan if things go wrong. You can always sack the Roostosaur.
And now you also make me want to put in Call of the Grave, because then I can Call of the Grave back up my Roostosaur, play it back down on the cheap, and have, make it a little bit more powerful in late game.
Definitely. So I made a quick post here on the channel and chat. For anybody interested in the Rock League, that's the thing for it. You can still join it. It's not too late. And it's been going on for a couple weeks. So if you're interested, and even if you're not, you should be interested. It's fun. Try it out, and there's not like a whole lot of commitment to it, so it's not like it's very intimidating or anything. Join in and have some fun. Why don't we talk about that card real quick that got spoiled, and then we'll keep
all right. So let's get that card up.
Okay.
It may take me a few moments to make sure that. Okay, so we've got that there. We're going to. Alright. Here is the new guy. Let's make him nice and big for everyone to see. All right, so this is a it is a Sapphire card.
Mm-hmm.
It has an 8 cost, 3 Sapphire threshold. It is Shogoth, a void touched troop. It cannot be blocked.
Awesome.
Yeah. Sucker is sweet. So it can't be blocked. It's got a 3 Sapphire 1 cost ability. Put 2 other cards and this all from your hand into your deck. Put 2 other cards and it's probably Shogoth. So, put 2 other cards and we'll say and Shogoth into your from your hand into your deck. Interrupt target card.
This gets
minus 4 cost. So
I'm guessing the ability isn't what's getting cost minus 4.
No, it's probably the Shogoth.
Yeah.
Wow, so what Shogoth does is that you have to drop it in as an 8 to start with. And then for 3 Sapphire and a 1 and 2 cards from your hand, you get to interrupt a card.
Okay,
then it cycles back in, it then costs 4. If you hit it again, it's then free.
Yeah.
And so that's a cycling interrupt.
I'm not sure it works quite the way you said. And it's kind of worded strangely. So, Shogoth, is it activating that ability from your hand, or is it activating that ability from play? It makes it seem to me that it's activating from your hand. It's saying put 2 other cards and this all from your hand. So I would think that
so it doesn't even have to be in play for that.
Or
wow.
Even further, it can't activate that ability when it's in play. You get what I'm saying? So if it's in play, I don't think it can do that.
Well, even then, it still would be better in your hand anyway, though, because once you cycle it and those 2 other cards through, if it comes back up again, it's going to be first to 4 cost on its first cycle, and if it cycles again, it's now a free cost. And there's nothing like a late game 0 cost 7/6 in Sapphire with 2 counter magics in hand.
It's unblockable. So the thing with it though is that it makes it seem to me that it's an anti-combo card. That it's a very, in a sense, expensive counter. That you're not really paying a whole lot of resources. You're only paying 1. But it requires 3 Sapphire threshold, so maybe it's not that great of a combo breaker because you can't play it turn 0 or turn 1.
You can play it turn 2.
If you don't have, you could with some
turn
some
1
effort,
adaptable infusion device to hit yourself at 2 threshold, and then you play your 3rd one on turn 2. So the soonest you can play this would be turn 2.
If you have a lot of card draw, you could definitely counter lock them. That's totally a thing. But you are, at this point, paying 2 cards. You're basically using 3 cards to counter one of theirs, it seems like to me.
Yeah, that has to be a really necessary counter.
Yeah. You are only getting to pay 1 resource for it, so that's pretty solid.
Well,
and it is getting cheaper. The one thing, I think, balance-wise, I would like to see is that the other 2 cards that you shuffle back into your deck also get permanent cost -1 or -4. I think that would be pretty reasonable, and it kind of works, and it would probably almost even be easier to word it on the card that way.
The wording is a little clunky, and I think it definitely could use a once-over to make it, because if you can use it from your hand, then it needs to be a little bit more easy to interpret that. Now, granted, all of a sudden they put something onto the chain and then this card lights up with its ability because you meet all of its requirements, that's one indicator, but that's not a replacement for good wording.
Yeah, so I think they probably need to reword it slightly because it's not entirely clear whether it can activate that ability while it's in play or while it's in your hand. If it's only while it's in your hand, I would guess that a lot of decks playing Shogoth are very rarely going to actually play it onto the field, unless they had multiple copies and they're putting 1 in play and 1 in their hand. Then sure, that maybe they will. The other part that's nice, and somebody was mentioning Peak here in chat, is that this works really well with Peak if you only have 3 resources open and you absolutely 100% need to counter that card or you lose the game, you could peek for this for 2 resources,
True.
find Shogoth, and then still use it. Whereas if you were peeking for a counter magic and you only had 3 resources up, you wouldn't be able to afford to do both. So that's kind of a cool thing about this.
That can be really rough on the turn 4 drops for Gore Feast.
Yeah.
And some of the aggro decks, they're not going to like how that might play out for them. I like that aspect of it. I like that it's void touched. I also really like the flavor in the peak combo. If you think about this for a moment, so because on peak it's the person who's kind of looking into the box, and all of a sudden they're really looking into the void, and there's a Shogoth tentacle about to come rip their face off.
Yeah.
So I like the flavor of that combo, and plus also there's a Servant of Shogoth out now in set 1.
That's what I was going to tie back to.
Oh my goodness! Think of the flavor of that deck. You can suddenly make an otherworldly horror deck, a void touch deck that way, because all of that stuff is it's well named.
So what's the card? It's Splinter of Azathoth. Is that the name of it? Has a very similar ability. I thought it had the card itself requires 3 threshold to play. It's a troop. So it's kind of the same. The ability is very similar. It lets you interrupt the card.
Let's go find
as a troop. The only thing, I guess, is I thought part of its ability required that you had 3 Sapphire to do that. But that would make sense. Actually, and now that I'm kind of connecting all the dots there, Shogoth has got to be doing it from your hand, because otherwise the 3 Sapphire requirement feels kind of redundant, because it's 3 Sapphire to put it into play anyways. So that's got to be from your hand. That's what you would have to have currently in order to activate it.
Yep. So they're really building up this void touch theme, and I'm really kind of liking some of where that's going. So you got cards like Eldritch Dreamer, which is also void touched. Got the whole tentacle aspect going on, and then you got Splinter of Azathoth, and then Servant of Shethak. Now, for those who pay more attention to some of the more classic horror literature, Shethak, Azathoth, Void Touched, Shogoth, these all happen to be very well themed.
Yeah.
And
I like the Lovecraft reference kind of.
Yeah, so the Lovecraft love associated there, I think, is really, really snazzy.
Yeah. The other one, actually, it's kind of funny, on Lovecraft, while we're touching on it real quick.
On top of that, sorry.
Names of stuff?
Yeah.
Is some Lovecraft, like, horror creatures, their names are trademarked because they were after a certain day where trademarking of that type became a thing. And the other half that were before that are not trademarked. So I think actually Cthulhu is one of the ones that isn't, which is funny because that's like the most popular of all of them. Yeah. While some of the later ones, I don't know too well. I haven't read a whole lot of Lovecraft, even though I've really wanted to. Some of the later ones are trademarked, so it's kind of funny for a licensing standpoint.
Yeah, and that's probably the reason why Cthulhu is everywhere in nerd marketing.
Yeah, so I would say another thing on Shogoth, something to think about is how many copies of this would you want to include in your deck. I'm guessing if you're playing Shogoth, you've got to also be playing counter magic. It would only make sense that if you're trying to do one, you're trying to do the other, especially because Shogoth is, on some levels, a very, very much more expensive version of counter magic. True. In that you're spending cards from your hand. It's card disadvantage in that sense. So, you don't always want to be throwing cards away, and by doing so, you're going to be limiting yourself. But if you're playing counter magic with this, how many other copies of Shogoth would you be playing? Even if you're not planning to use them as a counter, in that case, if you're including extra copies, being able to play him and him still having a use outside of just countering stuff, makes it so having extra copies in your deck isn't the end of the world. It's at least something to think about. And 8 cost is a lot, but really the ability is what you're playing him for, and that one's pretty cheap. So I don't know.
Do you think this might lead to a little bit more of a control lock style of Sapphire deck, where you're running like Splinters and Shogoth and all of that good stuff?
It it opens up the door for a specific type of deck that doesn't currently exist. And that would hopefully be one where you're drawing a lot of cards and then not really doing a whole lot, at least board progression wise. Your win condition might not even be damage. So there's something to think about.
I don't know, if you're running Shogoth and you cycle them often enough, you get a damage win condition.
Yeah, but you might just be keeping Shogoth in your hand all the time and just countering everything they play, which can be really unhealthy for the game if there is a tier 1 deck that revolves around basically not playing the game. But hopefully, it doesn't devolve into that point. Eldritch Dreamer works really well with this. If you have the draw gem, you're going to be getting extra fuel to throw cards away to counter. So, I don't know. Yeah, this is a lot of fun. Some cool stuff coming in this set too.
Very interesting. So
moving.
So one of the other things that we've, oh my god, it's still a fun card.
Yeah.
One of the other things that we're going to be doing here soon is we've been discussing and working on the draft tutorials, but we've also we talked a little bit about last week. We're also looking at doing a type of new player style of challenge. I think. We like the name of the Hex $10 challenge, or the Hex 10 challenge.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out a name. Because I almost had the perfect name for it the other day, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I think Hex $10 challenge is probably the best one we've come up with yet, but I think we can still do a little bit better. There's got to be the perfect name for it.
Well, so for those who weren't here with us last week, so the basic idea of this is you want to compare games as close to the different types and competitors that are there. So from all the TCGs that I've played, the general entry price every time has been roughly a $10 starter. It was a $10 starter for DBZ, $10 starter for Pokemon, a $10 starter for Magic Nation, $10 starter for Magic the Gathering. All of those, it was $10, your first deck, and and then you go off and go. But Hex, when you get into the beta, and when it goes open beta, everyone gets a free starter deck. And so far, those starter decks are not soulbound to us yet, to steal a term for WoW. You can list all of your cards, so you get a free starter in all senses of the term with all of the economic power of that starter. So I thought, it's okay, well, I know it's really, really difficult to grind out a lot of those games when everyone's running Tier 2, Tier 1 decks in Proving Grounds. And though, we've talked about some of the community solutions to that, generally you'd want to put about $10 to the game. So I thought, hey, let's figure out the best way to spend $10 in Hex and put our money where our mouth is and prove it.
Yeah, so the idea is that we're going to be putting $10 in. We're going to make an alternate account. Each of us is going to probably do it individually, but we're going to consult each other on it. We're going to be keeping track of I guess you could call them transactions, whether a transaction means playing in a tournament, buying a card, or doing whatever else, trading once that's out.
Yep.
With $10 and seeing how far you can get with that. I have a feeling that right now, if we were to do it, there's basically two possible scenarios. One is you're either very lucky in your first tournament that you do, and you're able to somehow free roll for quite a bit of time off of that, which is a possible situation. In some ways, that would be awesome if that happened, because it would be hey, we got pretty lucky. How long can we ride this train? In other ways, it would kind of suck if that happened, because then somebody can just go, oh, well, you guys just got lucky. That's not what most people are going to have as an experience. So there's that. The other option of something that could happen is you don't get lucky and you just do horrible right off the bat, although that's not really based on luck. There's other elements in there as well, including skill. And you just do horrible off the bat, and you might find yourself grinding Proving Grounds matches for gold for hours at a time, which isn't necessarily very much fun.
Well, it might be part of the challenge. So. I'll toss this side out there as well. What do we think Hearthstone daily quests are? When you're a new player to Hearthstone, you got to first play the AI to level up all of your different champions to unlock all of the free cards. So
I haven't played a whole lot of Hearthstone, but I at least know a little bit about it. So, and once you get your character up to level 10, you've essentially unlocked all the free cards for that class. And that's essentially you're unlocking your starter, and you can use the AI to get that.
But after you reach that point, the way that you start gaining resources to get the other types of cards is you have to go in and you have to play with gold. Mm-hmm. And you have a competitive chance when you are not ranked yet to start getting some gold. But once you've mastered the mechanics of the game, you've got an understanding, and you use that gray matter between your ears, and you're like, okay, I think I've mastered this style of deck. I've watched the streamers, I've got this going, I'm going to enter in and I'm going to ladder up and I want to get my gold earning streak on and get my quests and things up, and I want to start getting my, pay for packs, but I'm going to use the gold currency. Well, then you get your face stomped in for quite a while, because the rares make a really big difference in that game. Even though the style of building is a bit different, your complexity is it's not as well balanced, I would say, as what Hex does for your commons to uncommons to rares ratios.
So here's what I would touch on with that, right? Mm-hmm. Is right now in Proving Grounds, if you win a game using the random matchmaker, you'll get 100 gold, which isn't a lot. It takes a lot of gold to buy stuff, and as this kind of turns into like a source of gold and it's just flooding in, gold is going to be devalued more and more. And it's kind of good that they're not. This isn't really the intended way to get gold. It's just right now it's an incentive to use the Proving Grounds for people. So it's not one of those things where this is a long-term plan. Eventually they're going to remove it. And also, if it was a long-term plan, you would probably be getting a lot more gold, or you would have a way of using that gold to actually buy more cards within the game, like you're saying with Hearthstone.
I have an argument on that, but I'll wait till you're done.
One nice part, at least, is there is some sort of matchmaking system that once you've played enough games, it's going to start pairing you against people that are at least relatively even skill level or win ratio as you are. And, you'll start having a more reasonable chance at winning. If you're brand new, you won't be getting matched up against me or you, So there's that.
Well, a funny part is one of the things when they released the most recent set of data that I wanted to take a look at is I wanted to see what was going to happen with gold since they did the switch for Proving Grounds. Mm-hmm. And the effect of that Proving Grounds amount is dramatic.
Oh, it's really big?
It is dramatic, because what the data does is it goes from being really disorganized and spotty to a form of organization where you start seeing volumes increase, you start seeing trend lines, you start seeing stabilization and the creation of a market. Day one, it began. They implemented it on the 4th. People were starting to buy commons on the 4th. It started spiking up after it was initially put in. People started filling out collections using gold to get commons and uncommons. And here's the funny part is they are actually managing the economy in a deflationary state right now in terms of gold. Mm-hmm. And so the way that you measure gold and its purchasing power is essentially by comparing it to platinum. So how much gold does it take for every unit of platinum? So, the gold to platinum ratio. And when you start taking a look at it by rarity, you see a fairly stable amount for commons. It's roughly, if I remember for commons, 40 gold to 1 platinum value in commons. So for an average common that would cost you 3 platinum, you're paying about 120 gold at the time the data was taken. But when you take a look at uncommons, it's a little bit higher, but it was trending downward. And then you take a look at rares isolated, it was higher, but trending downwards. And the reason for this is because the ways you get gold in our game right now is you do tournament wins, which is essentially buying gold through platinum. Time and skill gets you more. But then Proving Grounds is the stable grind your way. And an economy needs the ability for its populace to be able to grind out a usable resource. Sure. Now, the reason it's deflating, though, is because if you think of what do we use our gold for, we have a 5% reduction from the auction house use. And then we are rolling on chests like there's no tomorrow. We are playing the slots function. Yep. And it's a huge gold drain. So you're getting less gold in, or the gold you're getting in is being drained out slowly through the chest rolls.
Is gold going down in value compared to plat? Like, is it one plat equaling more gold now? Is that
less gold? It's deflationary. That's the interesting part. So we're not seeing an inflation of gold; we're seeing a deflation of gold, and it's because
that's just because
chest rolls are just pulling it out.
Yeah.
Because 5% for the auction house fee is minimal, that might stabilize the market with this slow trickle in of gold that they have going on.
We got Hacky and Neo both in here.
Oh,
What's
man.
Up, guys?
Hi.
But, real quick, since you're mentioning rolling on chests, especially legendary chests that use a lot of gold, is I think they were saying there was a bug at some point that people were getting way more legendary chests than they should have. So it'll be interesting to see if once people have finally rolled on their chests that they shouldn't have been getting, if things start stabilizing in a different direction. But I totally get what you're saying. It's really interesting.
So the fun part is chests are only going to be generated through the purchase and actual use of platinum, and it's a really interesting interaction that they decided they wanted to brew together, where your your pay to compete players are generating your gold sink. So your most active and avid fans, which in every other MMO are an inflationary factor, are now a deflationary factor. Yeah. It is an absolute 180 from standard MMO economy. So that amuses the tar out of me.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I like what they got going, and it's gonna be a lot of fun moving forward. I can't wait until I'm mainly a PvP guy, but I can't wait for PvE. It's gonna be a lot of fun. It's gonna be nice once they have kind of the other ways of going free to play by doing the free to play elements and then selling that stuff to other players and finally being able to get your PvP cards and whatnot. It'll be kind of interesting to see how people are able to do that, and that would be another fun avenue for a $10 challenge. So.
Oh yeah, most definitely. But on top of that, speaking of PvE, you were talking a little bit about pets on your weekly brainstorm, right?
Okay, so I was talking about pets. We'll move on to our brainstorm thing, which actually kind of does it full circle since we started off talking about community stuff. Before we do, we want to start doing for the giveaway, maybe?
Yes, so for everyone who's here, kind of a heads up of what's going to be going on with the channel. We have finally got a bot in place that will allow us to start doing a point system so that we can start really making sure that our avid watchers and listeners get better access to the cooler stuff, because Function came back with a bunch of goodies and it's one of the ways he wants to spread the love. And so right now we have running a system where you can check your shards. So if you go ! Shards, you're going to find out how many shards, or my shards.
Do I have shards?
So yes, you got shards. Do my shards! ! My shards.
Oh, my shards. Okay,
yeah.
Let me see. I just want to see my shards. I got 11.
You got 11?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
everybody with their fancy bots, everybody's like gotten onto the bot train very quickly over the last couple weeks.
And what it does is it really makes it it adds a lot of interactivity to the chat, which can sometimes get a little stale, and I've seen Neo use them really well. Mythic's been using them fantastically.
Yeah, everybody's got going on fun.
Really good stuff there, and so everyone who's here today is gaining points, and
Neo
and those
got
shards are going to be used
the Chris Woods face. I didn't see that one yet. That's awesome.
So in our other episodes and also during my stream, those shards will be used for some of our more exclusive giveaways. But for today, we're going to be doing a draft pack, right, Function?
Yeah, we're going to give away a draft pack.
And so I'm going to be enabling that sucker because...
Oh, what? We got a Quacken now, too? Holy crap, I definitely need to sub. That's awesome. I didn't even know you made that happen yet, Neo. That's totally awesome.
Sweet.
Wow. Yeah, that's sweet. And actually, speaking of awesome, all of a sudden we got a whole bunch more viewers. So everybody who just tuned in over the last 15 minutes or so, thanks for tuning in. We'll probably do a very brief recap of the episode as we wrap up later on.
Yes.
And it's been fun stuff. It's been kind of a slow last couple of weeks as far as Hex new stuff goes. Besides the guys getting their partnership.
Go. One button click typing. So it just hit the chat, so we're going to be giving away a draft pack today. It's not going to cost any points whatsoever. No shards are going to be on there. So you can enter in one time. All you have to do is type ! draft PLZ, draft please. And this is for a draft pack, right? So it's 3 packs and a draft ticket, right?
Yep, so long as you already have access to the Hex beta, you will be able to redeem that and be able to draft. We will be sending you, or I'll be sending you the message on Twitch after the stream is over. We're going to wait till afterwards so I'm not all distracted while we're doing the stream. And I'll send you the code. I would say this though, please if you haven't added me on Twitch, because I don't stream all that often, I ought to, and I should listen to Neo and do it more often. Yes, you should. If you haven't added me, you're going to need to check your like other mailbox or your junk mailbox, whatever it's called. You're not going to see it immediately in your messages. So if you haven't added me, please just click on your other thing, because I'll make sure I send it, and that'll be fun stuff. So you can go on there. Probably starting next week or so, we're going to, like Mokog was saying, be giving away some more interesting stuff, maybe like mercenaries or codes or other things from Gen Con that I have to give away. Although, I am using most of those for the brainstorms, yes. Which is a nice segue back to talking about those.
Segue!
On the brainstorms, I'll say this, is I'm starting to have, maybe, I wouldn't say a little bit of trouble coming up with topics, but it is starting to feel like we were covering most of the gamut. So actually, this week's topic was one from As1 Jaguar, who you've been having a fun discussion with lately. So it was from him. He was suggesting, hey, you should talk about pets, because we know we have some new pet creating guys in set 2, and we were going to see what people could come up with. And there's been some really fun ones so far. I should give a shout out when we're talking about brainstorms to Adam AOE2, who I think is also Brynhilder, if I'm not mistaken. And he's been contributing to all these brainstorms and coming up with absolutely amazing ideas on all of them. I can't choose him to win every time because I want to be able to spread the wealth, but he would be winning quite a few of these if I was doing it that way. So this week's topic is pets. Last week's was guilds, which probably wasn't really as popular as some of the other ones are. But this week is pets, so you're coming up with a card that creates a pet. We're talking cards like the Sure Safe Shell Shot, or however that one is, Sly Huntress, Whale Falconer, they all create pets, so you're creating your own. I think my example that I used this week was like a guinea pig herd master that created a swarm card, and the way that worked is at the beginning of every turn it gave the guinea pig swarm +1/+1, and whenever the guinea pig swarm took damage, instead of dying to damage, it would just reduce its power and toughness, or attack and defense by 1 for every damage it took. So it kind of shrank. If it was an 8/8 and it took 8 damage, it would still die. But if it was an 8/8 and it took 3 damage, now it would be a 5/5 instead. So it kind of has that swarm element that you see in a lot of games, in games like Warhammer and other things, where it's not just one troop, it's many troops, and they take damage in the form of reducing their power. And then the herd master itself gives the guinea pigs +1/+1 every turn. So eventually the swarm overwhelms you if it's left unchecked. Another one I did, which actually I thought was a lot more fun, was like a mining cavern spelunker guy, and he has robot mole pets. And so I used tunneling as a mechanic because that's in set 2. So it was, not a lot of people were using set 2 stuff yet in any of these brainstorms, so I figured I might take a shot at it myself here. And when he comes into play, he creates the pet, which works well for tunneling because that's all a lot of those mechanics are about, coming into play. So potentially create multiple pets by keep coming back. And he creates the mole, and when the mole, it's just kind of like an offensive troop, it's just a 3/1 or something like that, so it's kind of meant to just attack and die, and when it dies it burrows him again, so he'll come back with another mole a few turns later. That was a fun one there. So we're talking about pets this week. If you're somebody who hasn't participated in the brainstorms yet, they're on the forums in the general thread, and every week I do them. I usually have giveaways, or I always have giveaways. I do one to a random participant. That way just everybody's encouraged to participate, even if you don't have the greatest idea. Now, if you're doing that and you want to be entered for that, you can't just say, oh, this is fun, and that be your post. You actually have to contribute in some way, whether it's discussing somebody else's submission or coming up with your own. Even if you don't come up with your own, if you just discuss what other people are doing, that's acceptable. And then I also choose one winner that I liked, whether it's a fun flavor one. So everybody always comes up with something fun and flavorful. I know somebody suggested in here like a Wizard of Oz themed pet thing, which was a lot of fun. And we were doing stuff like that. So that's the brainstorm, and that's my spiel about that.
So I love the idea of pets because it really brings me back to like the World of Warcraft days where you'd have your cute little cuddly guys, and I was thinking like, all right, well, if you bring in all the cards. So I did a search for a pet, and it doesn't bring up all of them, but it brings up most of them. So the Royal Falconer makes falcon pets, and then turtle pet we mentioned, and then surprisingly enough, it's the
Silver Talon or the Wizard of the Silver Talon is the other set 3 one, or set 1.
So there's our Senator, and our Senator makes Silver Talon pet birds. I don't know if they mean for him to be.
Actually funny too.
Yeah, I don't know if they actually mean for that to be a pet, but it's classified as a pet.
Yeah, because the wizard itself is really the pet. In the lore, what they were talking about, I think it was on NeoStream or somebody's, where they had the lore guys in here and talking about that. And then another one which was mentioned in the Brainstorm post is King Gabriel creates his wolf buddy, but that one's not actually called a pet. So I don't know if that one counts. Nobody told Boldheart what to do. He's not a pet. So maybe that's that one. I know what I was getting on with the Brainstorm at the beginning is...
yes, he's not a pet. He is a great wolf.
Yeah,
he's got a lodge named after him, dang it. Sorry.
Well, I guess I wouldn't say I'm running out of ideas. I have a bunch coming up that are going to be a lot of fun. But if people have ideas that they think would be fun, send me a message either on like Twitter or on the Hex forums. Although my mailbox on the Hex forums is cluttered, I need to delete all those. It's kind of clunky what they have going on. But you can send me ideas, and I might use them if they fit, if it feels like something that would actually be fun to discuss for the Brainstorm. I might not, but there's no harm in at least suggesting them, so you can always use a little help there. And I think coming up, what we're going to be talking about is dungeons. And since this is kind of what I was saying about winding down a little bit, is we're probably going to do dungeons as a series of brainstorms and kind of do a little groupthink way of doing it, so that should be fun.
So, speaking of dungeons, one of the interchanges we were having on Twitter with Fento a little bit earlier, he was included on here, and you were as well with Ashwin Jaguar, was you were blocked miraculously from internet because you had company over, but I didn't know that at the time, and I'm like, I shall send my Shroomkin Ninja to go remove all your obstacles. You should get back online.
Yeah.
And I would say Ashwan took umbrage with the statement of Shroomkin Ninja because, you know, they're little dopey guys running around, the ones you've seen like the Mustachio Gang or even, you know, kind of short, squatty type of characters.
Shroomkin Mobsters. I like that a little bit more.
Oh yeah, and of course I think the current ones are more like the Banditos, but that's just different flavor of mobster in certain cases. In any case, I was just so amused. I would sit there on my Twitter and I'd be like, at the thought, and you probably have heard that laugh a couple times this episode. But in any case, it inspired me so much, I even went and I wrote up the origin of the Shroomnobi just for that. And
yeah, I saw your post on the forums. It's like long. I gotta read it because it looks like fun.
Yes, it's something. In any case, but the thought behind when I was making it, I was like, you know, what would be really fun if you were going to like start up a dungeon or a mercenary, and how would you want to relate the Shroomkin and the a shinobi style of character coming into one, and how would you make that kind of flavorful running around? And I had time at work because every once in a while someone's not moving money around the world.
What were you trying to link? I think it might let me link stuff hacky, so because I'm a mod or on the channel at least, or you can enable it so Nightbot lets him post his things. Oh, it was an Ogre Ninja. Yeah. Okay.
Ogre Ninja would be so cool too.
Yeah. Are there ogres yet? I think there's Feral Ogre. There's some ogres in here. Yeah, that's okay.
So like for a dungeon idea, I pre-submit that one. Origin of the Shroomnobi.
Yeah, I think what we're gonna start off. So we'll do a little spoiler at least on kind of what I'm thinking for the brainstorm. Is when we start doing the dungeon one, we're gonna start off that the very first brainstorm isn't about mechanics. It's just about coming up with the setting for the dungeon, and then we're gonna probably choose a few of those that are the favorites, and then everybody is going to try to come up with the mechanics for the dungeons that were already submitted. So come up with, you know, a fun theme or a fun setting or just a fun adventure style thing. I have a couple that I'm going to use for my examples because I always at least start off with an example to, get the mental juices flowing for everybody else. And that should be a fun way of approaching it. I think it would be fun to group think and at least kind of stretch that out a little bit longer because there's a lot to deal with for the topic of dungeons. But that's enough about that. So we're doing the giveaway right now. Now it's folks' last chance to enter if they still want to. It's !draft please, like it says in chat, if you want to enter in the giveaway. Thanks for everybody joining in. This has been one of our more successful General Stent. It's awesome to have everybody join in here, and it might not be a coincidence that we finally did it twice in 2 weeks, and people come and turn out when we're actually doing it on a regular basis. So
yes,
that's a good thing.
We're going to want to keep this sucker going.
Do we want to crack our pack and then we'll do the giveaway?
Yeah. So
our traditional round it up.
All right. So let us move on over. We're going to. All right. And so while that is catching up onto the stream, all right. Shall we go ahead and do the winner now before we start talking about it, or shall we talk about it and then do the winner?
We'll talk about it and then do the winner.
All right.
That's all right.
So we have all of that. Shazam! Alright, so it's just about to come up.
Just out of curiosity, so now we have this super sweet new layout. Is there any way to enlarge the playfield? Like, can we maybe go to a, maybe your streaming mode where it just doesn't have me for a second while we talk about this? Well, maybe that's not the best one. But some way of enlarging this.
So we're a little bit bigger now. Okay. We'll see that flip over. So taking a look at it, this it's overall. I want to talk about because I got to get my draft style thinking muscles up on this one.
Well, speaking of pets, it's kind of convenient that the Royal Falconer's in there. I just had to say that.
Yes, it is.
But yeah, what were you gonna?
So I'd automatically pick Royal Falconer, just hands down. It's a fantastic card. It creates advantage. Flyers, I mean, it still could get pinged on the 2/1, but that's harder to do in draft, so it's still fantastic. But even then, there's still great stuff in this pack. I mean, because you've got Mimics, Roseline puts in good work, Sapper's Charge does fantastic, Thunderbird is a good attacking aggro guy, Call of the Grave is desired.
Call of Grave's a card where I don't use it often enough, and it's pretty good.
Oh, yeah. Anytime I run Blood, I am wanting Call of the Grave every single time.
It's great with like Briar Legions, or a whole bunch of other cards that kind of work like Briar Legion, whether it's a Giant Corpse Fly, I don't know, a whole bunch of different things. Call of Grave, pretty strong.
You know how I like using Call of the Grave the most, my friend? I like looking at this and like, it's a troop from a graveyard into my hand. I'm playing a mirror match. I'm stealing my opponent's Urnaz I just murdered. Thanks, guys!
Yeah. Colin definitely wrecked me with his Call of the Grave and Briar Legion deck, where he had like 8 Briar Legions and a whole bunch of Call of the Graves, and that's the only card he ever played. That was kind of nasty.
Oh, wow. I want to draft that one day. So, I'd say pack 1, pick 1 is the Royal Falconer. It's there's a reason why it's in Gore Feast. It's a good, powerful card. It takes advantage of a lot of different inspires. It gets there. You can't get any better than it gets there.
So if the Royal Falconer's missing, then what's your pick?
If the Royal Falconer's picking,
So
the first thought that comes to mind is the fight between removal and a really cool action. So because my toss up comes between Sapper's Charge, because it's usable, you can put it into any deck, which means you can help round out your removal suite no matter what else you're playing.
It's nice and flexible, sure.
But then you also have Mimic, which is very Sapphire centric, but the balance of play that it creates when you do a well-timed Mimic is very powerful, because it's coming in as a replica, which means you're getting around a lot of different types of removal, and that's a really powerful side of it. And then you've got follow-ups after that we mentioned before. So
whether it's mimicking your opponent's thing, because now that it's a replica, the threshold is ignored. So you're able to do that, use your opponent's best troop against them. Mimic is a card that I'm probably undervaluing, I would say, and probably to a pretty large extent. I don't use it very often, and I should. It's one card it's really good with is Terrobot. Mimicking that, you'll almost always be able to play the Terrobot the same turn for really low amount of resources, and getting more Terrobots is always good. But it's a pretty strong card. My pick, if the Royal Falconer is gone, might be Roselion, and that's just because I've been having a lot of success with it lately. Initially, I kind of considered Roselion a dud, and I would pass it all the time, and now I'm starting to take it more and more, and at least trying to play with it. I'm not sure how decent that would be as the second pick here, But Rosalind is definitely a card for people to reconsider and trying playing with it, because what it does is if your opponent doesn't have a lot of answers within their deck, I'm not saying in their hand, but just in their deck total, it kind of forces them to play a slightly different game that eventually Roseline is going to be pretty big. And once you start bringing it into action, it's going to be something they have to deal with. Of course, it's not nearly as good on playing at turn 6 as it is turn 2. But when you play Roseline turn 2, it definitely changes the course of the game. That's always something to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, and I think part of what you're saying that really speaks out to me on that card is it forces behavioral change.
Yeah, which is always good.
And what it does is it, specifically for like some of the draft decks that are kind of more mid-range and late game, it forces them, especially when it is dropped turn 2 or turn 3, to switch from being able to sit on their laurels while they set up into needing to be aggressive to force the lion to block.
Yeah.
And what that does is that forces tricks, that forces bad trades, and it makes your opponent understand that if they don't begin to take action, the lion swings for 3, the lion could swing for 5, the lion could swing for 6.
I do like when you're playing against lion to be really aggressive against your opponent who has it in play, trying to force them to block with it early, when your hand dictates at least that if it got out of control you'd be in trouble, and they don't really know that. So getting them to block with it early, sometimes that happens. Usually people let it grow to like a 5-6, which I feel is usually about right. The other interesting thing here with Roselion versus Thunderbird, which is also in the pack, and they do kind of serve a somewhat similar role in that eventually they're going to be pretty scary. The Thunderbird is scary from the moment it hits the board, whereas the Roselion, it takes a while for it to become scary. But they're both these 2-drops that, when played on turn 2, can be really strong. The thing I like is that Bombsmith answers both of them perfectly if they're on the draw and they play their Bombsmith on turn 2. But a top deck Bombsmith will only ever answer the Thunderbird, whereas the Roselion will have already grown by then. If it's like turn 5 and they top deck it, all of a sudden it no longer kills the Roselion. So there's at least a little fun way to look at them.
Well, we have like one answer, an early answer, if especially to a late lion, is Atrophy, but a perfect answer to the Thunderbird.
Yeah, so the other cards in here that are pretty strong besides the Falconer, I'm liking the Roselion a lot. Mimic is good, like you were saying. Saber's Charge is really strong. Thunderbird is really strong, although it's also really fragile. So generally, if you're playing Thunderbird, you want to have a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Also, the other scary thing about Thunderbird for the player using it is it falls off really fast if your opponent's playing the 2/4 flyers, either the Griffin or the Mystic. If they have those, all of a sudden the Thunderbird is a dud. You need to answer their 2/4 before you're able to actually start swinging with the Thunderbird. So that's kind of awkward. Luckily, you might be able to pull a bunch of those out of the draft and use them yourself. If you're already playing Thunderbird, you're probably going to want them. I don't know if I mentioned Saber's Charge, that's also a choice here. And Atrophy is a card which I used to rate really highly. I think it's starting to move out of my meta, at least for what I pick in draft. It's still a card I use a lot, but I wouldn't be taking it this early. If I was already in Blood, I'd be happy to have it.
Yeah.
But it's not something I'm snatching up.
And I think the big comparison for that is if you take a look at what one more resource will get you with Terrible Transfer, you'd rather just have a Terrible Transfer than an Atrophy a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Because in draft, that life gain just gives you the turns you need a lot of the time.
Yeah. Getting the card is nice. Being able to play it a turn sooner is nice for if you're just using on a fragile threat like the Thunderbird. But almost like we were saying with the Rock League Kronstang, turns out Terrible Transfer for 13, in the late game can really swing the game in a dramatic way. But why don't we go ahead and do our draft giveaway now? We can wrap that up if you think we're ready, and I can kind of do a little quick recap of what we talked about on that episode.
Yes.
Okay. So while Mokog's rounding up the giveaway, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we talked about today. We started off with our introduction, and we went right into kind of a community roundup. There's a lot of stuff going on in the community lately. Neo, Alucard, and Mythic Fish Mom all got Twitch partnerships, which is awesome for them, and it's awesome for the rest of the community too, because it just gets more attention in the game. We want to see good things happen to good people, and it's awesome that they're getting the recognition for all their hard work, because man, those guys have put in a lot of hours streaming. It's finally nice that they're able to at least subsidize their streaming a little bit. We have Fento, which this is actually news from 2 weeks ago, but we didn't mention on last week's stream. We have a new community manager for Hex, which is awesome because we're going to be getting a lot more communication sent our way and new fun information. Speaking of which, he gave us a little spoiler on Twitter and Facebook earlier today, and we talked about that card as well as Shogoth, which seems pretty cool. A counter trick for when your opponent doesn't think you have resources for counter magic. Oh, sorry, did I disappear?
I had to bring you back.
So we got Fento, and we also have the Rock League, our other community thing going. Crone put that up on the forums, and it's been a lot of fun so far. If you're, this is the first week of it, so it's kind of a casual league-style tournament where people are building these decks that are only using commons and uncommons, so it has a really low barrier to entry. It's kind of just at that fun level that anybody can enjoy. I played a couple of my games already. I lost one round and I won the other. And you can just kind of build these wacky decks that you don't really get a chance to use in the big name tournaments or in the 128 mans. So you gotta have a little fun there and do something that a lot of people would want to do. We talked about how we're going to start doing our drafting tutorials and our Hex $10 challenge pretty soon. It's going to be a lot of fun to do that free-to-play challenge. Hopefully we'll be starting that in the next week or so. We still have a couple kinks to work out and figure out what kind of rules we're going to set for ourselves, as well as what goals we're going to have. We talked about my brainstorms, which I'm doing on the forums, and those have been a lot of fun. I didn't say it earlier, but I should say it now, is I just have to say thanks to everybody participating in the brainstorms. It's been a lot of fun for me to create these, but it's also been a lot of fun to read everybody's awesome responses. And, I'm giving away, I wouldn't say prizes, but I'm giving stuff away for participation, and just because I think it's a fun thing. It's nice to have something positive to discuss on the forums rather than people trolling, which seems like it's cropping up a lot lately. And so it's nice to have something that does not involve trolling on the forums and a reason for people to visit it. So since I appreciate things like that, I just want to show my appreciation to the people participating. So I'm doing regular giveaways on the brainstorms. And then
you're saying when you have fun and you share your fun with others, other people have fun? That sounds like community. Oh man.
So
Fento would be so proud of us.
So, and that about wraps up. And I think one of the cooler news that I didn't even mention is we have this super sweet new, General's Tent skin, which is pretty rad, I've got to say. It's nice to have something kind of a little bit more professional, isn't even the right term, just more awesome looking. I like it. And hopefully you guys like it too, because Mokog and his wife put a lot of work into it, and it's pretty rad.
All right. Well, that being the case, I want to thank all of y'all for stopping by and hanging out with us for an hour. Not too bad. We're getting better on our time.
Yeah.
Be sure you follow us on Twitter as well as YouTube. Go ahead and follow us here on Twitch to go ahead and keep up with when we'll be streaming, so that way when we go live, we'll be doing the several of the challenges over the streams. We'll also be doing different YouTubes. If you want to check out some of our archived General's Tent content, we have that on YouTube as well. I try to get them up about a week after we're done. Let's see, do we have any other fun, interesting things before we sign off for the evening?
No, off the top of my head, while I was giving my spiel, I went through that pretty fast. That was a lot of
you did really good.
Yeah.
I need to turn that into like a YouTube summary and be like, General's Tent, first few minutes.
yeah, that went pretty well. I was going to say Peace Tinker once, so congrats to Peace Tinker. I'll be sending you the draft ticket right after this stream. I'll trust you on the honesty system, is that I don't think I've given out the code that I'm going to give to you, so I'm going to try that one out first. If it doesn't work, let me know right away, and I'll send you a code that I know works. But please be honest. What else were we going to say? Anything else? Closing statements, Mokog?
That one. May the Shroomnobi be with you.
May the Shroomnobi be with you. Yeah, that, and actually, it's awesome that we've had a successful stream tonight, and we're finally, thanks to inspiration of other community members, we're finally getting around to actually hopefully be putting out some more YouTube stuff again, because we gotta, we started off as the kings of Hex YouTube. We gotta retake that crown and make things happen. So.
Well, the community that we are building together across YouTube, across Twitch, across the forums, in the chat that's even going on now, we go through our little growing pains. We're going to have our stages. It's been really good. And seeing different members of the community crop up, step up, and try to be leaders and guides for all of our new players so that they can just have the most fun that they can in our soon-to-be sandboxy MMO experience when we hit release.
It's definitely a group hug community. Like
everyone really come in for awkward hugs with Corey!
Yeah. So, no, Case, thanks. I don't know if I see... Who is it? I see Hex Havoc, I see Neo, and I see Hacky all in here, or at least they were a minute or two ago. They might be streaming later, so if you're tuning in now, and we're all done with our stream, and
I have links to all of their stuff below.
Yeah, you can scroll down in our.
I figured out how to do links. It is so epic once you get it to work.
Yeah, so once we're done, you should tune into those guys because they have awesome streams. And tune us next week. Like I said, we're probably gonna be giving away a mercenary code, I think. So
yeah, give away a merc. Sounds good. All right, thanks for watching, everyone.
Peace.